when two teenage vloggers launched their kayaks onto Florida's Lake Jesup to record the ultimate haunted water adventure. Their cameras were rolling, but by nightfall, they had vanished without a trace. For 2 years, their absence was a wound left open, until a crab fisherman working waters where the St. Johns River feeds into the Gulf pulled up a trap heavier than usual, and inside was a waterlogged iPhone glowing with unsettling implications. Before continuing this amazing story, let us know, where are you watching from today? Let's begin our story. The sun was still high, and their chatter carried across the water like the bright notes of birdsong. Their cameras were rolling as always, balanced carefully on deck mounts, recording every laugh, every daring proclamation for the small but loyal YouTube audience who tuned in each week to watch. Haunted Lake Jesup Challenge, their live stream title had promised. To their growing subscriber base, it sounded like pure adrenaline entertainment. To the locals at the bait shop that morning, it sounded like foolishness. More than one old-timer shook his head, murmuring about how Jesup had earned its reputation not from ghosts, but from something far more real. Shifting currents, sudden storms, and histories dotted with wreckage. But the teens weren't listening. They were chasing footage, drama, clout. And they had no intention of paddling back early. At 16 and 17, they wore their confidence like armor. Brash, tanned, neon-decked in life vests, they joked about never needing. They paddled side by side past the hyacinth mats and into deeper water, narrating as they went. They teased one another, dared each other to stay longer, laughed whenever one mispronounced the name of a mangrove tunnel or exaggerated the danger. The lake spread wide, more a shallow inland sea than a recreational pond. Its muddy waters lapped lazily under the glare of late spring heat, scummed with algae, swarmed with insects that hummed in clouds along the shoreline. Those who knew it best said Jesup took on two faces in a single day, benign and golden in daylight hours, then black-mouthed and treacherous when night fell. The teens had heard these stories in fragments and wove them into their narration, treating warnings as part of the fun, seasoning to spice their investigation. Yet phone footage later recovered would show subtle hints their bravado was partly performative. In moments between scripted one-liners, their eyes flickered at rustling sounds in the reeds, at the splash of unseen creatures, at the guttural croaks that rose unnervingly from hidden corners of the swamp. The bravado that charmed their audience was laced with the natural dread that comes whenever someone ventures too far into a wilderness they don't truly understand. They posted a short clip to Instagram at 4:23 p.m., one grinning girl, one boy making spooky faces behind her. The caption, "If we don't make it back, tell my mom we died chasing ghosts on Jesup." It was the kind of playful melodrama teenagers excel at, the kind that means little in the moment, but turns searing in hindsight. Because after 6 p.m., as dusk smeared lavender light across the cypress tree line, their accounts went silent. No more livestream updates, no more frantic emojis or teaser screenshots, just silence. By 9 o'clock that night, when they had failed to return to the marina where a friend was waiting, texts to their phones began to bounce, unanswered. Their last shared location flickered briefly on a map, somewhere deep in the northern channels, where narrowing waterways twist beneath draping moss, before connection died altogether. Search teams were launched within hours. Deputies in airboats skimmed across the moonlit surface, their engines scattering alligators that slid silently into black water. Helicopters circled. Dogs sniffed along the vegetated shore. At dawn, volunteers gathered by the dozens, calling their names through the still heat. Kayak fragments were never found. No backpacks, no shoes, no trace of bright-colored vests they had joked about not needing. The water swallowed everything. 2 missing teens, 2 families suspended in nightmare, Weeks stretched into months. The case drew local headlines, then national attention when online followers reignited the mystery in forums and Reddit threads, mining clips for clues, analyzing background noises frame by frame, imagining conspiracies in every blurred pixel. Each theory faded into futility. Authorities cataloged it plainly as a presumed drowning. The swamp devoured, and the swamp did not return. But as 1 year ticked into 2, their absence became both wound and ghost. Families held vigils with candles, seeking hope and prayer. Detectives closed files but never truly stopped listening for tips. Rumors persisted. Some insisted the kayaks had been dragged out to the open Gulf through hidden channels. Some said gators. Others whispered about locals who avoided the lake for reasons they didn't explain aloud. What is certain is that for those 2 years, no tangible proof surfaced. No items washed ashore. No phones buzzed to life. Much like Jesup's reputation, the case became more legend than evidence. Until one morning in early April, when a crab fisherman working his usual spots far downstream tugged on a line and felt weight far heavier than usual. He cursed, leaning against the winch as it squealed and groaned, hauling a trap from where brackish waters of St. John's mingled with the salt push of the Gulf. Within the rusted cage, crabs scuttled and clashed, their shells clicking like castanets. But there, wedged among barnacle-crusted wires and seagrass, was a shape incongruous with all the rest. A rectangle. Pink shine dulled beneath algae, edges rough with marine growth. The fisherman frowned. He'd dredged up sunglasses before, even a lady's wristwatch once. Personal items always unsettled him, as if the water were whispering of stories it had claimed. He pried the object free, and in his calloused hands saw it clearer. An iPhone in a chewed-up glitter-pink case, charm still dangling at one corner. He pulled a rag from his back pocket and scraped away residue, staring at the device. It had been submerged long, too long, yet its shape was unmistakable. A phone too recent to be an antique, too personal to dismiss. He set it in a bucket and pulled at his beard, suddenly uneasy. The Gulf rarely gave anything back, and when it did, it chose carefully. He couldn't know then that the small rectangle would detonate a silence 2 years deep, reopening wounds thoughts scarred over, propelling a grief-hollowed family back into nightmares. He only knew that the swamp had spared a single object, and he was now the unwilling messenger. The fisherman had been on the water since before dawn, his weathered skiff rocking gently as tide and breeze traded rhythm. His name was Curtis Lyle, though everyone at the marina called him Kurt, a short, wiry man with faded tattoos around his wrists, remnants of service years in the Navy, long before traps and bait took over his mornings. He shifted the recovered trap onto the sorting table. The crabs poured out first, clattering across metal with frantic claws, but his eyes never left the rectangular shard pressed against a corner. Taking up the slim thing in both hands, he turned it over, under sunlight, filtering orange through mist. Marine life had coated half its surface. Pale tubeworm spirals and dark algae patches clung stubbornly, lending it the look of something ancient, dragged from shipwreck. But beneath, unmistakable features remained. Glass screen, cracked near the corner. A glitter-infused rubber case with dulled hearts pressed into its back, and hanging from its port, a small metallic charm shaped like a crescent moon. Kurt thought of the careless ways tourists sometimes scattered valuable things into water, of the sunglasses he'd once netted that still smelled faintly of cologne, of the single leather shoe found snagged among reeds a year back. But this was different. This object had weight beyond ounces. He could feel it. Phones weren't just objects anymore. They were diaries, journals, companions, carriers of entire lives. Whoever had owned this one hadn't misplaced it lightly. His gut churned. Small hairs rose at the base of his neck. He finished sorting his catch with motions so practiced he scarcely noticed, setting aside crabs by size, shoving impervious little monsters back overboard. But all the while, his eyes flicked toward the phone. For the first time in months, the rhythm of his work felt invasive, wrong. By late morning, he tied off at his slip and asked her, unlashing crates onto the dock. His truck sat quiet in the dirt lot nearby, and in the cab, the phone lay wrapped in a rag on the passenger seat, as if he'd shielded it from prying eyes. He told himself it was nothing. Tourists lost things all the time. Kids dropped expensive devices in water every summer. But voices from the bait shop echoed back. Old men grumbling at their coffee, saying those kids had never come back from Jesup. The two vloggers with cameras buzzing like flies. 2 years gone and nothing ever found. Kurt sat there behind the wheel a long moment staring at the rag. Then, with a resigned exhale, he started the truck. Within an hour, he stood at the evidence counter of the county sheriff's office. The deputy on duty arched eyebrows as he unwrapped the object and slid it across. "Pulled this from my trap 8 miles down," Kurt said. He kept his voice even, but in his chest, his heart picked up. The deputy peered close, frowning at marine scarring, then tagging an evidence bag. "Will inventory. You think it belonged to someone local?" Kurt shrugged and rubbed the back of his neck. "Something about it didn't feel accidental." He left the office lighter, though less relieved than expected. With the phone behind glass, cataloged and stored, what mattered was no longer in his hands. He told himself that was for the best, yet as he drove away, diesel rattling through chassis, Kurt knew he'd brought something dangerous to the surface. And whatever story it carried, the water had picked him to reveal it. Detective Mariela Santos stood at her desk reviewing case reports when the call came through from evidence. She flipped the folder open at the tag number written hastily across bagged plastic. An iPhone recovered by a fisherman. Serial matched against a federal database. Linked without doubt to one of the 2 missing teenagers from Jesup, gone silent on May 14th, 2 years prior. Her jaw tightened. Cases like these never left detectives, even when officially cold. 2 mothers weeping in her office. Fathers who wouldn't sleep for months. Flyers curled on utility poles despite weather. Unsolved time bombs sitting inside filing cabinets. She dialed the number listed. It rang once, then again. On the 3rd ring, a man's voice answered, wary, dry of throat. "Mr. Hammond? This is Detective Santos with the Seminole County Sheriff's Office. Sir, I'd like you to come in today if possible. We've recovered property we believe belonged to your daughter." The silence that followed stretched long enough she checked to be sure line still held. Then a sound on the other end, sharp inhale like air, sucked through teeth. What did you say?" "Property was found downstream from Lake Jesup and preserved by one of our technicians. The serial number is a match. It's her device, Mr. Hammond." The man's breath faltered. Papers rustled in background. His voice broke, then grew rough. "Her phone?" "Yes, sir. I think best if you came in. Midday if possible." "I'll be there in an hour." The call dropped. Grant Hammond pulled into Sheriff's Department parking barely 40 minutes later, though roads there twisted wider than memory allowed. His fingers shook as he cut the engine. For 2 years, he had carried silence like stone across his ribs. Brief nightmares clawed each night, but even nightmares offered clumsy images. Drifting kayaks, shadowing reptiles, cameras sliding just beneath surface. Reality offered nothing, just silence. At the evidence locker, Detective Santos led him into a small conference room unlit, but by single fluorescent buzzing above. On the table sat a bag. Inside it, pink rubber dulled but intact, a charm dangling in form of crescent moon. He remembered her begging him to order online late one night. "Dad, everyone has boring cases. Help me stand out," she'd argued, leaning over his shoulder. He had muttered about waste of money, then clicked buy anyway. Now his chest caved under that memory. His breath refused to steady. "Is this hers?" the detective asked. "As sure as I've ever been of anything," he whispered, pressing knuckles to his mouth, clearing his throat. He dragged eyes from plastic. "Where exactly was it found?" "Caught in crab trap about 8 miles off where the river empties south," she said. "Barnacle growth indicates it's been submerged for some time." Grant's mind reeled. 8 miles. He tried to picture currents, routes, tried to picture kayaks drifting that far. None of it made sense. "What about—" He gestured at the device. Santos hesitated. "Our tech division has been able to recover partial data despite damage. Messages, some photos, 1 or 2 short videos. Mr. Hammond, these may be difficult to review, but they may provide final context regarding what happened." His pulse thudded so loudly it swallowed her words. But he nodded. A laptop angled toward him. A technician clicked play. And for the first time in years, the room filled with his daughter's voice. Her tone was bright, lively, tinged with theatrical fear the teens always played for viewers. "Okay, guys, we're really doing it. Haunted Lake Jesup, after sunset." She panned phone toward her friend paddling parallel, who grinned nervously. Cypress shadows towered in background. Water black. Insects humming. Laughter. Whispered warnings. They gestured toward shifting reeds where bubbles rose. The timestamp at the corner read 6:02 p.m. The same evening, they never came back. Grant's knees weakened. His hands pressed against cool table metal, as if anchoring him in present. On screen, his daughter laughed again, tossing hair, smiling wide. "If a ghost gator gets us, at least it'll be viral," she shouted. The feed jittered. Static lines, audio hiccup. Then, faint behind their laughter, came something else. Dull knocks, like oars against unseen hull. Both teens glanced over their shoulders at once, smiles faltering. The camera swiveled. Darkness pooled between mangrove branches, too tight to distinguish. Then the footage stuttered, froze, blackened. Video over. Silence filled the room. Grant gripped edge of table, face crumpling. He felt detective's gaze, but words refused his throat. He'd just seen final fragments of his child, bright and breathing, then gone. Detective Santos waited until Grant's breathing slowed before speaking again. The glow from the paused video still lingered on her laptop screen, a frozen smile belonging to someone gone 2 years. She closed the file with a tap and set her palms gently on the folder. "I know this is difficult, Mr. Hammond, but I need to walk you through what we found." Grant nodded stiffly. His knuckles whitened against the table. "The iPhone logged its signal until 6:14 p.m., she continued. "That's approximately 12 minutes after the last video clip." She slid a map across the table, paper covered in contour lines of marshes and waterways. Red ink traced a jagged route outward from the public launch to deeper channels. A faint blue square marked their final ping. "Here," she said, tapping nail against the coordinate. "North channel of Jesup. Locals call it the labyrinth." They weren't exaggerating. Grant leaned closer. Even as an outsider, the danger was obvious. A knot of winding channels so tangled, it resembled veins beneath skin. "They were here?" "The phone was," Santos said carefully. "These channels carry fast flows depending on tide. Currents could push objects for miles. That's how it probably made its way south, until caught in the fisherman's trap near the Gulf." She paused. Marine Patrol referred to this sub-region as disorientation zone. GPS signals can scatter, compasses useless. Most boaters won't risk it without years of experience. Grant stared until his vision blurred. He remembered laughter from video a moment ago, his daughter's daring grin as she filmed shadows, children waiting where even adults felt dread. "And in all the search sweeps?" he asked hoarsely. "We sent airboats repeatedly the first week. Drones after. Nothing surfaced. No witnesses placed them inside those back channels. But she hesitated, choosing words as carefully as if each carried weight enough to crush. We cannot rule out the possibility people saw something and chose not to speak. Grant's head snapped up. What do you mean? Santos folded hands. You spoke with bait shop employees after disappearance. Yes. They said she'd asked about hidden channels. She mentioned locals gave directions. The detective nodded gravely. That detail concerned me even then, because only long-term fishermen knew entries into the labyrinth. Casual visitors would never send a pair of teenagers inside. Someone with knowledge pointed them deeper. Someone confident. Her tone was factual, devoid of drama, which only made suspicion sour the air thicker. He pressed a palm against his chest, steadying breath. But the phone proves she was there. Santos inclined her head. This gives us a better timeline and location. What it doesn't provide is what happened afterward. For that, she exhaled, shoulders settling with burden of years of futility. We'll need help. A knock sounded at the conference door. Another officer poked his head inside. Younger, with close-cropped hair, his uniform blotched where sweat dampened collar in Florida heat. Detective, sorry to interrupt, but I heard about the Jesup item recovery. She lifted a brow. Yes, officer? Troy McAllister, Marine Division. I patrol that stretch often, he said, stepping fully inside. His badge gleamed damp, and he smelled faintly of salt spray. If you start canvassing docks again, it might help if family comes too. Folks talk different around kin. Might stir memories. Grant sat forward immediately. I'll do anything. Whatever stirs something loose. Santos studied him, then nodded once. Go with Officer McAllister. Start near Lake Jesup marinas. Visit bait shops, docks, charter slips. See if anything jogs. She slid the evidence photo of the pink phone back toward him, carefully, as though touch might sear him. Bring this image someone may recognize. They left the sheriff's office together, sunlight glaring white across cracked asphalt. McAllister's patrol jeep gleamed salt-streaked. Radio clipped to dash. You holding up okay? The young officer asked once they were rolling south. His voice carried casual warmth, careful not to pity. I've got a daughter about the same age. Can't imagine. Grant kept eyes on horizon. Words didn't come. Memories did. Weekend fishing trips, his daughter leaning over bow with ridiculous hat, mocking his sunblock obsession. If I don't slather SPF 100, Dad, we'll die before the ghosts get us. The echo choked him now. They drove down Route 17, fields giving way to swampland. Cypress knees thrust like knuckled bones from stagnant water. Dragonflies skimmed heat ripples above duckweed. Grant pressed forehead against glass, watching endless green dissolve into deeper channels. At the marina, boats rocked gentle against aging docks. The place smelled of baitfish and diesel. McAllister walked ahead, nodding to captains who greeted him with easy familiarity. They passed racks of rods clattering in wind, rope coils stiff with salt. Conversations rolled similar at first. No, hadn't been out that way 2 summers back. No, didn't remember kids. Some shook heads, some muttered condolences, all eager to move along. Grant felt frustration coil like wire inside chest with each dead end. Memory couldn't have erased them all. 2 kids in bright jackets, cameras, a pink phone. Someone had seen. Someone must recall. McAllister paused suddenly near end of dock. He squinted toward a man bent over an outboard motor, grease streaking his lean forearms. Tattoos lined skin, sun-scoured. A boat name painted across stern shimmered in paint. Mariner's Luck. Well, I'll be damned, McAllister murmured. Haven't seen him in months. The man straightened, wiped oil rag across hands. His eyes, pale and sharp as fish belly, slid from McAllister to Grant. Then he smiled. Easy, practiced, friendly enough to lower guard. Troy, didn't expect Marine Patrol down here today. His voice rasped, gravel wrapped in honey. McAllister gestured. Wade Corbin, meet Mr. Hammond. His daughter vanished out here 2 years ago. We're revisiting. Corbin extended a hand, grease smears shining dark against callus. Sorry for your loss, sir. Know these waters better than anyone, but... His gaze flicked toward Lake's dark mouth. They can be cruel. Grant clasped his hand stiffly. Were you working these waters then? Always working them, Corbin said with shrug. 25 years on Jesup. There are places out there, you blink wrong, you get lost. His smile thinned. Kids especially. McAllister pulled phone photo from folder. Corbin studied the pink case, charm still dangling an image. His brow knit. Recognize it? Grant asked sharply. Phone? No. He paused. Tilted head as if listening inward. But I know where you ought to look again. Maze channels off North Bank. That spot's a magnet. Currents drag everything. Bodies, gear, debris. At least that's the rumor. Grant swallowed hard. Can you take me? Not official patrol style, McAllister interjected. Regulations get prickly in the maze. Corbin lifted hands. Not saying violate rules. Just saying some of us know paths in blind spots. Won't cost you. Out of respect. His eyes glittered briefly. Tomorrow morning, say, 5:30. Best currents then. Grant looked between them, heartbeat loud in ears. For the first time in 2 years, he'd been handed something more than silence. A man who claimed to know channels, promising guidance. Hope flared against choking suspicion. As dusk bruised sky beyond, mosquitoes whining in sheets, he clutched the image of that glitter phone tighter, feeling weight like a compass needle twitching north. Tomorrow, he thought. Tomorrow, they'd go back where the swamp had taken her. He couldn't yet know tomorrow would open questions darker than any he'd asked so far. Grant arrived at Jesup Marina before sun had breached the horizon. Headlights slicing the pre-dawn gloom, mist, dragging long fingers over the water's flat expanse. The parking lot was nearly empty this hour. Only one figure moved across the docks. Wade Corbin, bent over a hulking center console fishing vessel fitted with twin outboards, its hull gleaming pale against still water. Morning, Mr. Hammond, Corbin called, straightening, his tone casual, almost jovial, as though this were just another charter run. Good tide window today. Currents pulling east steady. Perfect to sweep through the north channels. Grant clutched the paper map folded in his pocket. The same coordinates Detective Santos had marked. He forced nod in return. Thanks for meeting me. Least I can do for a father, Wade replied, flashing quick smile beneath trimmed beard. These waters, well, they give and they take. But knowledge helps. Step aboard, let's get you settled. Grant walked down weather-worn planks, each creak loud against morning hush. He stepped onto the boat, immediately noting its size. 28, maybe 30 feet. Deck washed meticulously clean. Rod holders flanking rails. Array of electronics glowing faint on the console. Too much, he thought distantly, for local snapper runs. As he stowed his small backpack near bench seat, his foot tapped against a rectangular panel in deck plating that rattled under weight. He glanced down. Several such hatches dotted floor, heavier than usual fish lockers. Watch your step, Corbin said quickly, appearing beside him. Storage compartments everywhere. Gotta balance weight proper. Grant nodded, but kept note. Wade ducked below center console briefly, returning with water bottles, extending one forward. Going to be hot later. You'll need it. Grant accepted, slipping it into pack. His eyes snagged on fuel gauges. 3 separate dials instead of 1. That's a lot of capacity, Corbin chuckled. Can't risk going dry 20 miles out. I run long charters. Some folks demand Gulf trolling for 12 hours. Better safe than sorry. Maybe reasonable, Grant thought. Still, unease clung, engines coughed, thundered to life. As Wade eased throttles forward, The boat cut clean through stillness, mist parting like gauze. The marina shrank behind. Open water of Jesup sprawled before them, deceptively calm. Its silted surface, gold-tipped, as first sun broke horizon. "So, tell me about Emily," Wade said over growl of motors, eyes on channel markers ahead. "What kind of videos did she make?" Grant stared out where pale fog blurred sky from water. She loved hidden places. Trails, springs, old ruins. Anything off main maps. She said she wanted to show people corners others ignored. Corbin nodded, expression unreadable. "Ambitious kid. Takes guts to put yourself out there like that. Not everyone has it." They fell quiet a while, swallowed by thrum of outboards and hiss of slicing wake. Gulls wheeled above, calling sharp, their cries carrying across still morning. Half an hour on, the shoreline fractured, channels twisting into mangrove-lined corridors. Wade throttled back, easing them into quieter water, where roots knuckled down into dark silt and branches formed tunnel overhead. Here, shadows pooled dense, even in daylight. "This is the beginning of the labyrinth," Wade said. "One path looks same as next. Easy to lose bearings. But I know how the flows run here, where tide pulls you out, where it traps." Grant uncrumpled coordinates. "These numbers, this region, straight back." Corbin's jaw flexed subtly. He pointed instead toward a cluster of distant PVC markers. "That section's restricted now. Manatee Protection Zone. Patrol will write you heavy ticket if we nose in there. Regulations came down last year." Heat pricked Grant's scalp. "Restricted? But she was there. That's where phone marked." "I know." Wade's tone softened. Smooth, ready comfort. "But time changes terrain and rules. Don't mean we can't work edges. Anything caught up there would sweep out this way. I've seen it. A paddle once popped up 15 miles from where owner swore he dropped it." He spun wheel gently, guiding vessel along outer perimeter. Currents funneled in swirls, visible even to untrained eye. Leaves spun, foam eddied, surface dragged toward wider reaches. "See? Anything floating gets drawn here, then, eventually south." Grant stared at water, pulse hammering. He wanted to protest, to force entry toward those inner coordinates. But Wade steered with calm authority of someone who did not ask. For 2 hours, they worked perimeter. Wade idled near mangrove hooks, pointing to patterns of flow, explaining how lost kayaks turned or where drift might carry anything uncovered. Grant scanned incessantly with binoculars, heart aching each time branches tangled into knots that may or may not have hid something unnatural. Nothing. Around noon, Wade leaned against console, shading eyes. "Running low. We'll fuel up and grab bite at dock just upriver." Grant blinked at fuel gauge, only half drained despite hours running. He bit tongue. The little marina had single pump, weather-grade store-shelving drinks and ice. Wade busied fueling tanks while Grant stepped out, neck stiff, eyes drawn to ordinary mundanity of dock hands coiling rope. When he returned with bottled tea, he found Wade stacking boxes from his pickup onto deck. Water jugs, ice, packaged snacks. Nothing unusual until Grant's gaze landed on several bulk containers. Feminine hygiene supplies, pads and tampons, still shrink-wrapped tight. His brow creased. "That's a lot for a fishing boat." Corbin noticed his glance, explained instantly, voice smooth as before. "Charter business. Always keep comprehensive kit. You'd be shocked what guests forget. Lady cut her leg on hook last month. Pads work best as bandages. Blood stops quick." He chuckled like it were practical joke of experience. Grant forced stiff nod, but unease deepened. Who stocked that volume unless for something else? They loaded crates together, plastic squeaking under heat. Again, Grant noticed. Wade shifted heavier boxes toward those unusual deck hatches, lowering them into compartments before latching secure. Metal clinked. He worked fast, too fast. "Balanced distribution," he said. "Keeps ride smooth." Grant kept silent. But memory replayed. His daughter in kayak, laughing brave. Camera pointed at shadows. 2 years gone into black water, and now he stood on a boat with compartments too many, supplies unfit. Later, as Wade steered them back toward mouth of labyrinth, sun-burnished swells like molten brass, heat pressing heavy. Insects rose as clouds against mangroves. "Sometimes," Wade said suddenly, casually, "waters don't give back because someone makes sure they don't. Understand?" Grant turned sharply. "What are you saying?" Wade smiled thin, eyes back on horizon. "Nothing. Just that when folks vanish, Lake Swallow's story, nobody asks deeper. Nobody wants to." Grant's grip whitened along railing. The boat cut deeper between cypress. Their twisted trunks mirrored dark in water. Air tasted metallic, stagnant. Grant's heartbeat thudded unnatural rhythm, aligning with thrum of engines. And he realized, with dawning clarity, that this journey into the labyrinth was less about finding answers than about treading directly through new, dangerous questions. The afternoon heat lay like molten lead on the water. By the time Wade throttled down into the North Labyrinth channels again, Grant's shirt clung to his back, damp patches spreading under arms, sweat slicking down the ridge of his spine. Even shaded beneath cypress canopy, air was thick enough to choke, rank with sweet rot mingling with metallic tang from stagnant pools. He wiped his forehead with trembling knuckle, binoculars weighing heavy in his other hand. On both sides, mangroves pressed inward, their roots like black claws clenching water. Eddies swirled slow, pulling floating vegetation in spirals. The boat rocked gently, idling forward through passages that all looked the same, tunnels of green and shadow. "See here?" Wade gestured with broad hand toward current, swirling odd against trunk. "This is where flows converge. Anything dropped anywhere upstream funnels through. It's why your girl's phone made it down to Gulf. Always the same route. Take it from someone who's lost gear more times than he'll admit." Grant tried to picture device, spinning through maze, helpless as driftwood, carried miles away. But his attention kept snagging on something more immediate. The way Wade stood relaxed at helm, arm leaning across console, smile too ready. Like guide telling tourist routine facts. Not like man entering sight of vanished youth. "What about bodies?" Grant asked suddenly, voice raw. "Have you ever seen people carried like that?" Pause. Wade's smile didn't fade exactly. It tightened. He glanced briefly, eyes hard, then back toward water. "Bodies float different than gear. Decomposition changes buoyancy. Gators, fish, birds. Water's garbage disposal, if you pardon image. That's why families don't get remains back. Jesup keeps them." The words hit like a stone, dropped deep. Grant clutched binoculars, looked away toward trees. A bird startled, wings ragged against canopy. Croak, splitting silence. They drifted another half-mile through narrow cut. Water darkened beneath, sun knifed in, only thin stripes, breaking surface into scattered coins of light. Bug swarms thickened. "Tell me something," Wade said after a time, tone softer, conversational. "You believe in closure?" Grant's lip trembled. "I believe in truth, not stories, not suggestions. Truth. Truth don't always heal." "Neither does silence," Grant snapped. The boat rocked as if absorbing tension. Beneath deck, something rattled, faint. Equipment shifting against compartment walls. Grant's gaze lingered on those hatches again, scattered symmetrical across deck plating. So many compartments. Too many. He thought of crates, carried earlier, sealed away quick. His chest tightened. "Lot of storage for one man," he muttered bluntly. Wade chuckled. "Bigger boats fill faster than you think. You'd be surprised, Mr. Hammond." He opened cooler, tossed Grant bottled water as if distraction were answer. Grant sipped only to coat mouth too dry for more. He felt the vibration of twin outboards through soles, a hum that seemed alive itself. Minutes later, Wade guided them toward what he called choke point. "Last coordinates lined up close to here," he said. He angled vessel against tide, so bow edged near mangrove wall. "Deeper you go, you'd find nothing but dead ends unless you know exact thread." Grant lifted binoculars, scanned bank. Shadows layered heavy across roots, pockets where anything might drift unseen. His eyes snagged on something pale, caught in fork of root, half submerged. His breath hitched. "Stop!" he demanded. "Over there! Something white!" Wade obliged instantly, easing throttle, letting boat angle in. Water lapped gently. Grant leaned out, heart jackhammering, binoculars shaking as he focused. It was styrofoam, broken cooler lid wedged against roots. Old, crusted, worthless. Exhale crashed from Grant's lungs, but relief twisted sharp into despair. He pressed fists to brow, muttered curse so low only water heard. "False alarms everywhere out here," Wade said, voice faintly amused. "I've chased plenty, trust me." Grant glared at him. "Difference is none of them were my child." For a moment, the two men's eyes locked, one desperate, one unreadable. Neither blinked until Wade finally glanced away, turning wheel to back them clear. They resumed course, every channel identical, every mangrove an accusation. Grant's despair hardened to suspicion, carved heavy in his stomach. By mid-afternoon, the oppressive hum of insects and heat fused into dizzying weight. Wade announced they'd circle back, fuel soon low again. Grant refused to look at gauges. At the next stop, Grant insisted on searching dock himself. Wade, busy chatting loosely with attendant, back turned. Grant crouched near hatch, fingers brushing latch handle. He pressed cautious, metal stiff, but shifted slightly. Darkness gaped beneath. He smelled something not wholly mechanical, not diesel, not bait. Something iron, coppery. A shiver ran his spine. Quick footsteps approached. Wade's shadow fell across him. "Everything all right?" the captain asked smoothly, too smoothly. Grant stood sharply, brushing palms against shorts. "Checking footing." Wade smiled, tight again, watching him too long before nodding. "Boat's sturdy. Been through worse than this swamp." They refueled, stowed more supplies. Boxes again vanished under deck into compartments Grant longed to rip open. He clenched jaw, suppressing thought, knowing suspicion without proof was just paranoia. Yet, something inside whispered louder every minute. This man knows more than he says. Driving back out, Wade grew quieter. Even his casual stories thinned. Grant watched him from corner of eye, each motion catalogued. The sure flick of throttle hand, the way he scanned horizon, not like a tourist guide, but like a guard. As sky dimmed toward bruised violet, they finally turned toward marina. Boats of locals bobbed there, couples fussing with nets, laughter drifting faint. Normal life resumed within sight of shore. Grant exhaled in jagged relief. Just as they entered slip, his knee banged lightly against deck plate, the loose one he'd noted before. Instinctively, he jerked glance down. Between metal edge and frame, narrow gap revealed glimpse inside. He froze. In that fraction of second before stepping off, he swore he saw fabric pressed against interior wall. Dark, faded cloth. Torn. His heart slammed. "Careful there," Wade said quickly, pulling sand-scuffed line to cleat. "Loose plate, been meaning to tighten for weeks." Grant tried to speak, words locking at throat. He stumbled onto dock, clutching pack like anchor. "Same time tomorrow, if you'd like," Wade asked, smile broad now, almost too broad in dimming light. "There's still channels we can cover." Grant nodded numbly. mouth too dry for refusal. When he finally reached his car, he collapsed behind wheel trembling. His eyes bore into marina mirror, catching reflection of Wade on his boat, humming as he coiled line, movements fluid, relaxed. Too relaxed. Like man with nothing to hide. Or everything. The sun toppled beneath horizon, bleeding red across water, red like stain. Grant gripped steering wheel till knuckles blanched. Tomorrow, he thought. Tomorrow he would return, and either find answers through swamp or rip them from secrets crawling beneath Wade Corbin's immaculate deck. Because the Gulf sometimes gave back relics. But men could choose what remained buried. Grant hardly slept. He lay on the stiff hotel mattress, staring at stippled ceiling, mind replaying the split instant on Wade's deck. Fabric visible between hatchplate and frame, a sliver of material out of place, gone before he could confirm. His imagination ran mad. Was it nothing? A rag, rope, bait cloth? Or was it hers? A life jacket fragment, shirt corner. Something the swamp had spared, but Wade had locked beneath. Each hour of the night stretched longer. He drifted in and out, haunted by remembered footage, the knock on water behind laughter, the screen freezing black. His daughter's smile arrested in time. His gut screamed that answer lay not in endless reeds or silt, but inches underfoot on Wade Corbin's immaculate boat. By first gray light, Grant rose, showered in scalding water that failed to clear weight from his chest, and sat back toward marina. Mist lay heavy across Jesup again, tendrils curling like smoke from liquid surface. The marina looked ghostly. Hulks outlined, docks floating in haze, ropes dripping dew. Wade's vessel, Mariner's Luck, perched ready at its slip, pristine after long day prior. Corbin was already aboard, humming low tune, scrubbing deck with casual efficiency. He hailed Grant cheerfully. "Morning again, Mr. Hammond. Seas calm, tide right for exploration. We'll run different channel, see what current's hiding." His tone easy, but Grant noted absence of fatigue. No weariness from yesterday's grueling hours. Rather, Wade appeared energized, too polished. Grant stepped aboard stiffly. Beneath his shoes, deck plates felt solid, hiding truths closer than swamp's depths. They pushed away. Outboards growled. Wakes split haze. Hours later, they cut again into labyrinth, but route varied. New passages, different angles. Mangroves loomed alien, symmetrical walls that closed behind them, leaving illusions of entrapment. Grant watched Wade, every gesture cataloged. The captain remained confident, purposeful, choosing turns where all others looked identical. "You sure know these waters," Grant remarked tightly. "Lived them longer than land," Wade replied with grin. But Grant caught flicker in his eyes. Quick glance downward, toward deck rather than horizon. They slowed near junction, where two streams merged. Current boiled faintly in swirl, carrying debris. Sticks, clumps of moss. Wade gestured. "This is another funnel. Anything drifting won't stop. Carries everything to Gulf eventually." Grant leaned over to rail, eyes straining. Sun angled sharp, light slicing water. Beneath surface, shadows shifted, rising briefly, submerging again. He gasped, pale oval, blurred like bone under foot of murk. His heart pounded. "Stop!" he barked. Wade idled instantly. Grant leaned further, knuckles blanching on rail. The shape rose closer, bobbing, then surfaced fully. A bleached bucket lid scarred with algae looped. Grant sagged back, breath ragged. "False alarms," Wade said, voice carven calm. "This maze is full of them." But Grant heard faint amusement beneath, as if Wade savored showing illusions. By noon, they pulled ashore on small, muddy spit to eat. Wade unpacked sandwiches from neat cooler. Grant chewed without taste. His eyes kept darting toward boat, toward sealed hatches. Wade sat opposite, posture casual. "This lake," he said softly between bites, "takes what it wants. Folks think man can master it with engines, satellites, cameras. Truth is simpler. Out here, you stay long enough. You belong to water, not yourself. Grant met his gaze. Is that what happened to them? Wade's smile froze a beat too long. He wiped mouth slowly. Maybe. A gull cried overhead, its call splitting silence sharp. Afternoon darkened with thickening clouds. Storms churned distant thunder. Lightning forked horizon but stayed far off. Waves slapped unevenly now as Wade guided them back. Grant shifted seat, heart hammering. He slid hand to pack, wrapped fingers around phone number on card Detective Santos had given. McAllister's direct line. Proof. He needed proof. They rode in silence, both men sweating under looming storm heat. At Marina, Wade cut engines with effortless motion, securing lines, smooth as ritual. Tomorrow, Wade said, voice too light, we'll try another branch, certain spots even deeper. Grant nodded numbly, about to step off. But this time he didn't. He hesitated, crouching casually, pretending to retie lace. His face level with deck plate, hand brush latch. He pinched gap open slightly, just enough. Inside, darkness pooled. He smelled copper again, raw, metallic, taint that did not belong among bait or rope. His stomach clenched. A shadow crossed behind. Wade's boots. Careful with those played edges, Wade said, tone still pleasant, yet undercut with quiet warning. Sharp corners. Hate to see you cut. Grant forced a tight nod, rising slowly. Their eyes locked. Long, unblinking. Wade broke first, smile twitching. Same time tomorrow, then? Grant stepped off at last, legs trembling. At his car he sat motionless, lungs straining, body electric with knowledge not yet proven. Somewhere between swamps, labyrinthine waterways, and compartments sealed under. Mariner's luck. Truth waited. He could feel it pressing, urgent, foul. Rain broke that night, lashing his motel window, thunder rolling across wetlands. Grant scrolled endlessly through old videos, watching his daughter alive again in loop, her laughter battlefield against anguish, rising like flood. He tried McAllister's number twice, then stopped. Without proof, what could he say? Suspicion? A smell? A glimpse of cloth? Still, determination rooted firm. He thought of fabric slip, the copper tang, Wade's too swift explanations. Tomorrow, he would uncover more. He swore it. But Jesup, like ocean, like swamp, did not give quietly. At 5 a.m., waking early, Grant shoved gear into backpack. Binoculars, bottled water, small flashlight. Something inside him expected to face labyrinth one last time. He froze at rattling noise outside his motel room window. Shade lifted slightly in draft. Parking lot gleamed wet, lights hazed by drizzle. In far corner, a boat trailer sat hitched to weathered truck. Even through glass, Grant recognized silhouette of vessel. T-top, twin outboards, name, shimmering faint. Mariner's luck. Wade Corbin stood beside, arms folded, looking up toward Grant's unit. His posture patient, expectant, as if verifying readiness. He lifted hand, tipped 2 fingers in mock salute. Grant's skin chilled. That morning, as dawn cracked pale, Grant found himself stepping once again onto Wade's boat, monstrous certainty clamping inside chest. Today will tell. Today I'll know. The engines coughed alive. Swamp swallowed them whole. Somewhere between reeds and hidden channels, within hatches sealed too tightly, among shadows where currents bled secrets into gulf, answers waited. Grant gripped rail, knuckles bone-white as Mariner's luck pushed deeper into labyrinth, and he understood, with sick twist of realization, that the swamp wasn't the only predator here. Thanks for watching this story, guys. Let us know your thoughts in the comment section.